Hello good people of YouTube, and welcome to my hobby channel and this very quick video in which I show you how I filled the gaps on this Reaper Bones Froggermoth. Or mud guppy. Is it called a mud guppy? I can't remember. Having just finished a couple of videos in my modelling and sculpting with green stuff and milliput series, I was about to carry on with some of my unboxing, building and kit bashing videos when I tripped over this fellow here, and then suddenly realised I could actually do the next video in my modelling and sculpting series fairly quickly. Now this is a Reaper Minis Bones 3, I think it is, mud gullet or froggermoth, kind of a frog demon really, and it was originally white, but I've started priming it with Vallejo's acrylic polyurethane surface primer. So I've used the bronze green on the body and the earth green on the underside and the base. Now I use the Vallejo polyurethane primers quite a lot because they are flexible, and this is a Bones 3 sort of white plastic which is a little bit rubbery. It does flex, it does move, so obviously if I was to prime that with primer from a rattle can, there is a good chance it would just crack and flake off, which if you model with Airfix soft plastic soldiers is a problem that you'll be all too familiar with. If I'd left him white, he wouldn't have shown up under the cameras as nicely as he does now. The detail would just be leached out under the lights and it would probably cause my camera to strobe a little. So he was primed, ready for his debut, and then I suddenly thought, well, actually, yes, I don't know how well you can see there, but there are several gaps on this model that need filling. And of course, there's no time like the present. So seeing as I thought I could film this video fairly quickly, I can edit it fairly quickly and get it up on YouTube fairly quickly, why not? Let's just crack on and do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is mix up some green stuff. Some of you may prefer to use gloves when you're mixing green stuff, and that's fine. Take whatever precautions that you feel are sensible and necessary. I will be washing my hands in warm soapy water as soon as this job is done. Hopefully you can see the gap there that I need to fill. There's also a gap there around what I guess you would call the armpit, and there's one on the other side there. I've got the green stuff that I've just mixed now, and I've got a silicone clay shaper, sometimes also referred to as a silicone brush. This one's grey, which I think is the medium firmness. If you want to know more about the sculpting tools that I use, you can check out my previous video in this series. The first thing I do is just break off a pea-sized portion of green stuff. And then I'm reducing that further still and rolling out a sausage shape. So I'll just put that there. Use the clay shaper to push the putty along the contour . I'm now coming in with a sculpting tool and I'm just lifting off the excess putty. I'm doing it this way on this model because the skin is quite textured and it's difficult to get to. It's not like I could just take a little bit of putty and push it into the gap with my fingers because there's too much detail in the way. So now I can return to the sculpting tool, the clay shaper, and work that out from the gap that's being filled onto the rest of the skin to basically blend it in with the detail, so that when this gets a little bit of primer painted over it, you won't be able to tell that there was ever any green stuff there. Drop it roughly where I want it. Use the clay shaper to push it into place. And it's at this point here that it blends into a different bit of skin texture, sort of creases rather than scales or warts. And I'm just using one of my sculpting tools to push the putty into all the crevices. And now I'm coming back in, this time with my black clay shaper. I think the silicone tip on this is a little bit more solid than the grey one, so I can apply a bit more pressure. I'll just do a little bit along here to show you where we've got the top of the armpit there. And because it's a bit tricky to get in there, I'm using a metal sculpting tool just to push it down. The joint actually starts to disappear here, so I'm going to cut the green stuff away there. Again, just work that in. Blending and smoothing with the skin texture. Just using the sculpting tool again to push it where I need it and cut it off when it goes up to the end of the gap. Come back in with the clay shaper again and just work the green stuff so that it echoes the texture of the model. And that's the most obvious of those gaps filled. So I've got some putty left over after filling the gaps on that model, and what I'm doing now is just rolling some balls of green stuff there very quickly, more or less to fit in with the size and shape of some of the texture on the back of the base there that looks like it could be frog spawn or froggermoth spawn, because my plan is to put this froggermoth here on a larger base, which I will have to texture with swamp terrain. So these extra balls of green stuff that I'm rolling can be sprinkled around here and be made to look like they're sitting in pools of water. It also means that I'm putting this excess green stuff to good use and it won't go to waste. The final job is to fill that gap that runs along the back of the mouth. Now, it's a little bit awkward for me to get in there with green stuff and a sculpting tool, but for that dark line at the back of the mouth, I'm just going to try and brush on a little bit of this acrylic resin plastic putty that's produced by Vallejo. Now, you could potentially use liquid green stuff if you've got some and you wanted to, or you could use plastic putty by a different manufacturer, but just make sure that it's safe to use on the model that you're working on. So I've just squeezed a tiny bit of putty there onto my glass palette. What I want to try and do now, and hopefully you can see this, is just pick up a little bit of putty and transfer it into that seam along the back of the mouth. And what I'm hoping is it'll contract a little when it dries, but even if it doesn't, a tiny little ridge of plastic putty will be easier to hide than either the gap that we've got there or a piece of green stuff that's pushed in. And there we are. Doesn't look very clever at the moment, but once that's painted, chances are you'll never know. So a little bit of time has passed, the green stuff is dry, and I've just come in and touched up the gap filling that I've done with some more of the acrylic polyurethane surface primer from Vallejo. And I'm quite pleased with that. If I just zoom in a little bit, you can see how those gaps have been filled. The green stuff has worked really well between the texture. And if we take a quick look in the mouth, it's not as obvious a join there as there was. I may come back in and just fill that again and touch that up, but I would do that anyway with any of this, and again at any point during the painting process. I think there is a tendency for us to worry a lot when we're building big models and painting models, that we have to get every stage done and finished in a certain order at a certain time. But one of the things I've learned is just to work flexibly. So if I start painting this model and I suddenly find that there is the hint of a gap still showing and it's spoiling the aesthetic, I'll come back in with the green stuff and just repeat the process. But anyway, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please smash that like button. Please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do. It's always good to hear from you, but make sure that your comments are kind and respectful. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.